Hey friend, welcome back to the show. I have a fun but kind of different episode for you today. So I recently hosted a Q&A call for my community where we dove into questions all about money, manifestation, business, alignment in business, and the questions were so juicy and I really took my time with the answers, and I thought it would be really fantastic to bring that to the podcast. So that is what we have this week for you. And I think you're going to find so much value and insight in this episode. Now, in other news, this is exciting. I am going to be hosting these Q&A calls more consistently. So if you want to come to the next one, you can go to the show notes and register for it. It's completely free. And it's a way that you can bring questions about the content of this podcast or about manifestation or anything that you want some support around to the call and submit your question. And that way I can answer it live on the call and you can come hang out live, be in the energy of it. It was so much fun. All right. So let me get to your questions because a lot of fantastic ones came in. All right. First question was, I would like to manifest more money, but I have trouble with the clarity of my vision. It's as if I decide on a vision, then I can't change it later. Part of me believes that I shouldn't be asking for as much as I want because it's not realistic. My brain tells me that if it's unrealistic, then I won't manifest it. I also think there is a part of me that feels entitled and I shouldn't want more money. I feel like I'm doing it wrong. Help. Okay. I am so here to help you. So, okay. First thing that I would address, right? We're going to talk about both pieces, the part of you that is struggling with clarity of vision. But I think more importantly, we first need to address the part of you that thinks that if you want more money, it feels entitled and that you shouldn't, right? Like it's wrong to want more money. Because what you're doing is you have some subconscious belief that it's entitled to want more money and it's wrong. But then you're like, and I don't know why I am having trouble having a clarity of vision. The reason you're having trouble with that clarity of vision is because you have competing intentions. You have one intention to make more money and then one intention that's telling you it's wrong. So it blocks you. It blocks that vision from coming to life. It blocks it from feeling crystal clear and from you feeling lit up around it because there's a part of your brain, right? My sense is your soul and your spirit, your highest self says, I want an abundant life. I want to bring in more money. But then you have these old unintentional subconscious patterns that tell you, but that's wrong, right? So when we have competing intentions, it just blocks us and it blocks us from clarity. So what I recommend starting with is really taking a good hard look at this belief that says, I feel entitled and shouldn't want more money. Look at that part of you. We have to work with that part because if that part's still there, it's never going to feel clear and you're never going to feel safe or okay creating money because on some level you feel like a bad person doing it. So here's the thing, and I want to work with this because so many of you have probably taken on this belief. I mean, it runs in our culture that it's wrong to want more money, that it's bad, that we should feel guilty. And it really comes from this stated scarce illusion way of thinking. I say it's an illusion because it's not true. That like, if I have more, others will have less, right? It's like our brain sees money instead of an abundant resource that is unlimited, that's always growing, that's like available all over the place through all different channels, which is how money actually is. Our brain tends to see it as this pie, right? This concrete pie. Like there's only this much money. And if I take one slice of the pie, someone else has less pie. But that is not how money works. That's actually not how it is because money is being created every single day and it's actually being circulated all of the time. And if you have more, it doesn't mean others have less. You know, I always tell people, you know, we're all good people. Like I'm a good person too. And I love people and I want to do good in the world. But I truly don't believe that if I have less money, then I'm doing better. I truly don't believe that if I don't allow myself to become abundant, I'm helping anyone else. In fact, the opposite is true, right? If I were to stop myself from creating abundance and limit my business and say I shouldn't want more, I'm not helping as many people, right? I'm also then not able to hire people. I'm not able to employ people. I'm not able to circulate money in the economy. It's actually more harmful for me to limit myself and say I shouldn't want money than it is to say it is safe, it is okay, and it is loving to have money. So it's so important that you reprogram that belief and find what is actually more true and what is more accurate. And the way that I would do that, I actually have a podcast episode. It's called Why You Should Feel Good About Becoming Wealthy. And it was on March 11th. And so my podcast is called Money, Manifestation, and Business. I would highly recommend going and listening to that because you have to find the reasons why you're going to do good in the world with money, right? You have to find the reasons why it's actually a positive thing because your brain is saying it's wrong and it's negative and it's entitled. But actually, you have to find why it's positive. And this is work that I did. And I realized so many things that would happen as an effect if I allowed myself more abundance. And I realized if I have more, it doesn't mean that the person down the street is going to have less. If that were true and I were like, hey, if I limit myself, they're going to definitely have more. I'd be like, yeah, let's do it that way, right? But that's not how it works, right? Because the amount of money people create comes from their consciousness, from what they believe is possible for them. So it's not like if you limit yourself, it's going to help the rest of the world. It's really not. So that's where I would begin, because I think when you clean up that belief, it's going to allow for that clarity of vision to come through for sure. And the other thing that I would do is just stop telling yourself it's unrealistic. Unrealistic is just a thought, right? That's just something that you're choosing to think. It's something you're choosing to believe. So you have to stop that mantra. Stop saying it's unrealistic, right? That's the first step is like, what if it was? What if it could be? What is realistic? There's literally no such thing of what's realistic and what's not, right? Realistic just comes from the past and what you've done in the past. But the future is completely open. It's completely clear. It's completely available for you to pave whatever path you want. So there's no such thing as unrealistic. So I think you just have to stop telling yourself that. All right. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to come into the Q&A box and answer a question that someone live submitted. Okay. What is the best tool for helping you let go of your intentions? I find it hard because I struggle with competing intentions. What have you found has helped you most in regards to rewiring? I am able to access those good feeling emotions and abundance vibes in meditation, but I tend to fall back into old stuff in my day-to-day routine. Oh my gosh, Anonymous, I hear you, right? So I would say one of my favorite practices for letting go of the competing intentions, right? For example, one competing intentions is it's wrong to make money. I feel entitled if I'm making money, right? I gave that example from the first question. So one of my favorite practices that I actually teach to all of my clients is called compassionate self-forgiveness. It's a practice I love doing right before bed, and I do it often. You put your hand on your heart, you close your eyes, and you say, I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that. And then you state the misbelief. You state the intention that you know is not accurate and that you don't want to hold on to. So, for example, would be, I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that desiring more money is entitled. I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that it's wrong to want more money. I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that if I have more, others will have less. That is not true. I'm actually proving that it's not true. If I have less, it doesn't impact others. If I have more, it can actually help others, right? So that's actually one of my favorite practice for releasing, right? Letting go of those competing intentions. So yeah, that's a practice that I would start with. I would go there first. Okay. Next question that was submitted is, how can I connect to my future self, to how she thinks, to who she is? Okay, great question. So in terms of connecting with your future self, one of my favorite ways to do that is to get still and disconnect from my mind, right? Because I don't think we're going to find the most abundant or highest future self from our mind, right? So I like to really get still. And I actually have a meditation called Becoming an Energetic Match to Money. It's in the movement. For those of you who are in, my coaching program, you have access to it, but I've actually just started offering that individually as well. So that's going to be something, I'll send it out as one of the offers, and you'll get a discount on it. And that is honestly my favorite way, is to go into more of a meditative state, because that's what that meditation does. It helps you connect with your future self, your future abundant self. And it slows me down, takes me out of the brain and takes me into kind of my highest self, where I'm able to relax and let that future self come to me, right? So that is truly my favorite way, is to do it through kind of more of it's not hypnosis, but being in that meditative state so that you're unhooked from the mind who's trying to tell you what it is. Now, another thing that can be really helpful that I found is just start like if you're someone who's totally not tapped into what you want in the future or your desires, you might want to just start brainstorming things that you like. And one great way to do that is through the app Pinterest, and just starting to go in there and like, what's my style? What do I like? What am I drawn to? What feels like me? What feels like the kind of house I'd want to live in? What kind of earrings do I want to wear? Right? Like looking at like developing your own style and figuring out what's the most you. What are the trips that you want to take? Right? What do you feel drawn towards? Because all of what you feel really drawn towards, or what your desires feel called towards, the way that I think of it is it's just your future self giving you an invitation, right? So if you feel drawn for some reason, you've always felt drawn to take a trip to Japan, for example, I'm just throwing something out there. It's kind of like your future self giving you a little hint of what's to come. So that's another way to think of it, is just tapping into your desires and owning that those are your desires and those are authentically you. And that might just be your future self giving you a little indication of what's to come, or the direction that it wants you to go in. Right? So that's another tool. And in terms of how does my future self think, that's where I would go into more of a meditative state and ask yourself like, hey, future self, like, how do you think? How does my future self think about this? And don't try to come from the mind, but let it come to you. And so much of this work, honestly, y'all, in terms of getting into alignment, is creating more stillness in your life. And I don't mean that you can't have a busy schedule. I don't mean you can't have a lot going on. Believe me, I have more going on than I've ever had going on in my life, but I still create moments for stillness and connection. And that is everything. And you're going to find that it's going to be a lot easier to connect with your future self if you start creating a little bit more stillness or times for connection or prayer or meditation in your life. And when I say that, find the things that you like. Maybe it's just taking a walk, right? What are the things that make you feel most you? Start doing that a little bit more, and it's going to help so much. It will help y'all so much with your creation process, with manifestation, with abundance. We have to slow down and stop hustling and get still a bit more. You can find the time for that, right? Like me, I'm flying out after this. And I'm like, okay, when I'm on the plane, I'm definitely going to be listening to a podcast episode that helps me get tapped in, or I'm going to be reading a book, or even just like meditating or taking a nap, something that helps me get still. So you have to find it in the moments throughout even a busy schedule. All right. Awesome. It says, any strategy on how to navigate our time and manage our daily tasks better based on our priorities? Yeah, honestly, one thing that I would do, Magali, is I would write down what your priorities are so that you know. One thing, I did this actually at my abundance retreat last year. I had my clients write down what are their top 3 priorities right now. Like, what are the top 3 things that they want to be spending their time on now? What is most important? And it may not even be want, but what feels like it's an alignment in this season. So, for example, if you have a job and you're like, that's not what I want to be spending my time on, but it's an alignment for right now because it brings me the abundance, you still want to put that in there because it's still an alignment in this season. So I would put down your top 3 priorities and what you want to be spending time on, and then just evaluate that. Like, look at that every day and remind yourself that these are your priorities and see if you can tap into that, or at least each week, right? So that would be one strategy, is first knowing what those priorities are is huge. It makes a huge difference. It's just like manifestation, get crystal clear, get clear first. Okay, perfect. Okay. Next question is, how did you leave behind your past self and patterns? Great question. Okay. Well, let me just say, I wouldn't say I left my past self behind. I understand where you're coming from, especially where you're like, oh, I have maybe these competing intentions or this old patterning or this old thought, and I want to let it go and I want to leave it behind. You can do that compassionate self-forgiveness work around the misbeliefs and really forgiving yourself for buying into that. That can be helpful. But I would also say, consider that you don't have to leave your past self behind. I did not leave my past self behind. Instead of leaving my past self behind, here's what I did. I thought about my past self and the patterns that she brings up that do not serve me, right? For example, my past self was really insecure. She didn't like to be seen. She really liked introverted time. She was scared of being like speaking in public. She would have literally died, right? Didn't like to like go up at school and give presentations or be in front of people. But I had this calling to really serve and spread this teaching with the world, the me as my 30s, in my 30s, right? I decided this is what I wanted to do as a coach. And my past self was terrified. She's like, no, you can't get in front of people. You can't speak, all of these things. I recognize those patterns are not helpful. Those patterns hold me back from really living into my purpose. But here's what I did was I decided that I'm no longer going to live from that place. I'm not going to let my past self drive in this area, right? I don't want my 8-year-old self to be the one that's in charge in my business. I don't want her to be the one on these calls running them, because she will be terrified, sweating, feeling nauseated, and all of the things. She can come with, I might feel her or experience her, right? She can come along for the journey, but she's not driving. So instead of getting rid of her, I thought, you know what? What can she bring though? What is awesome about my 8-year-old self? What did my 8-year-old self love? My 8-year-old self loved Barbies. She loved imagination. She loved playing school. And I remember even having a coaching session around this where it was a meditation. It was something where I was like, oh, I'm excited to bring her into this, but I want to bring her in the ways that's going to serve this purpose. So I'm like, ooh, the version of me that loves playing school, I get to get up in front of people and have my board. And this is my 8-year-old self that like loves this, right? With playing Barbies and imagination, that's the part of me that also loves manifestation and creating my dream life, right? So I bring that aspect of her into it. So it's more about just giving my, self in this moment a promotion, meaning I'm going to let my 38-year-old self with the wisdom that I have now drive, but I can bring my 8-year-old self along. And sometimes she's going to be scared. And sometimes she's going to need some nurturing. And sometimes she's going to feel shut down. And sometimes she's not going to want to get in front of people. And she can come with me and I will love on her, but it's going to be the 38-year-old self that drives and makes decisions and then nurtures and like cares for that older part of me. Or younger part of me, really. It's like an old, young part of me. So that's kind of how I have worked with it, because I have found that the younger parts of us have so much to offer. We don't want to get rid of them, right? But we just don't want them driving. And that's what's important, is starting to find a relationship with your present and future self, or like the highest version of you, right? Your highest self, and let that version of you drive. And sometimes it takes an extreme amount of courage, because our past self's back there saying, wait, Is that right? Are we sure? Is that safe? No, that's scary. And we have to come from that wisdom and say, I know it's scary, but we got this. We got this. Let's just do it. Let's do it. Right. So that's kind of how I work with my past self and old patterns. And I do a lot of forgiveness work. And I think that, I learned this at the University of Santa Monica, that healing is the application of loving to the places inside that hurt. So by saying like, I want to get rid of you, that's not really the most loving. It's probably going to be through like compassion and understanding that these parts of us will be healed way more so than just leaving it behind or getting rid of it. Because I know for me, if I just try to leave something behind or get rid of it, it just creates more resistance and more aggravation and frustration. And it's almost like those parts come on stronger. So anyways, kind of a deep answer there, but that's how I work with it. So good question. What is the sweet spot for being less attached to my desire in scaling my business without being too detached from it? I always feel like when I try to detach that I am, I always feel like when I try to detach that I am too detached. I'm either extreme. I even tried turning off my phone to help with attachment, but that's not realistic. What are some things that we can do when we feel like we are attached, but we want to get out of attachment? Okay, good question. So what I'm getting from this question is that what you're thinking is, I have to be attached to be all in, right? It's either I'm attached or I'm nothing. So I also have a podcast episode on that, which is, it's going to be back a little bit further, but it's talking about the difference between attachment and commitment. They're two different energies. Because I think what our brain does, like you're saying here, is we're like, well, if I'm not attached, then I don't want to do anything. Then I have no desire. Then how am I going to even create this thing? Right? But attachment is not the only way to create. Basically, what attachment means is that you are tying the outcome with your self-worth in some way, or maybe with your identity in some way. You're saying, I have to create this money or else I am not a creator of money. I have to create this money in order to be successful and to see myself as successful, or I have to have this level of business in order to see myself as worthy. And some, like, you put a lot of needy energy of like, I have to have this, right? That's what attachment is around manifestation. That's not the only way to create, though. In fact, that's one of the worst ways to create, because it's not true. And you will be disappointed time and time and time again, because you could manifest the money and you think, I'm going to feel abundant whenever I manifest that. I'm finally going to feel worthy. I'm finally going to feel successful. And what happens is you get there and you don't feel it. So you need another goalpost in order to feel, then, oh, I'll feel worthy once I make 10 million. And it just doesn't happen. It doesn't solve it, because what's happening is you're attaching an outcome to your self-worth, and outcomes do not affect your self-worth at all. That's why we see people hustling still, never enough, never enough, never enough. So the question you're asking is, well, then how do I stay committed to a goal? How do I create a goal or a manifestation without any attachment? Here's how. You can tap into desire. You can tap into commitment. Why do you want this in the first place, right? Why does your soul feel called to create this thing if it's not going to make you a better person, if it's not going to make you more worthy? Why do you think your soul feels called to create this thing? That's what you want to tap into, is the desire piece. You want to tap into the commitment of it, right? That's a different energy than attachment. Attachment is, I'll only be okay if I have this and I really, really, really need it. Desire is, I'm so excited to create this thing. It feels so good. I'm so passionate about this work. I love doing this. I'm so excited to serve. I feel called to do this. I know my soul came here to be an artist or whatever it is, right? So like, it's tapping into the like desire more versus the neediness. That's the difference. So I would play with the energy in which you're creating from. And so attachment is not the only way. And desire is not attachment. Commitment is not attachment, right? It's just more of like a commitment to create this thing. And again, if you want to dive deeper into that question, that podcast episode of the difference between commitment energy and attachment energy will be a great episode for you. So I think everyone needs to follow the Money Manifestation and Business podcast, because for most of these questions, there's usually an episode that I've gone deeper into. So I'll mention it for sure if I have it. Okay, perfect. Carla says, how do I practice owning that I do have some power on creating money monthly? I have been practicing the belief I don't know when money will come. And for that reason, I'm having a hard time stepping into the reality of I'm a business owner and a provider for my family. Perfect. Okay, Carla. So the first thing is I would let go of looking for evidence from the past or from your current self to determine your identity around this, right? So maybe if your income has been inconsistent, you're like, well, I don't know how to do this. I'm not someone who can create monthly income. Here's what I would practice is stepping into a belief before you see evidence of it. So I would just practice this belief that I create monthly income. I create monthly income. Or maybe it's even like, maybe monthly income is too much because then your brain looks for that and then you get attached to it being monthly. But what if it's just, I create consistent, abundant income? Or maybe it's just money always flows into me. We always have more than enough. That might be a good start, because I almost wonder if being attached to consistent monthly income is going to create more resistance versus like looking at what you create in a full year in your business. And maybe there's some seasons where it piles in, and then maybe there's other seasons where it's a little bit slower, and then maybe you get more windfalls again. Like, I would just question why that matters, right? It's more like, maybe it's just stepping into this knowing I always have overflow. We always create enough. Money always flows. It always comes back. That might be this first step before getting too attached to it needing to be monthly, right? And if you're someone who really wants monthly income, then you might want to set up your business in a way where that's how it works, right? Where maybe you do things more evergreen, you have payment plans, something like that, where if you prefer it not coming in with pay in full options, then you set it up to where everyone does payment plans so that it comes in monthly instead, if you prefer that. I'm just saying that because I know you're a coach. So, that's the thing is I think, you have to set your business up in that way if that's what you want. Otherwise, I would let go of needing it to be that way and being okay with you having windfalls of abundance. And then sometimes it might be a little bit slower, and then maybe there's more windfalls, right? But it's just the belief that you always create more and that you are abundant and money always comes. So that's what I would say. All right, perfect. Okay, next question is, how can I start and launch and reach out to others for collaboration on my podcast in the most abundant way to attract the most growth possible? Okay, fantastic question. So here's what I would recommend if you want to reach out to others for collaboration on your podcast. Focus on, you want to come from a clean place around this. If you want to do it in the most abundant way, come from a clean place, which is not about how much you get, right? It's not about how much subscribers you get. It's not about the growth of your podcast. It's shifting from what can I get out of this to what can I give. You want to get into giving consciousness, and that is how the most growth just naturally happens. So giving consciousness means when you're looking for collaborators, position it as, how is this going to serve them to have a conversation with me on the podcast, right? What am I going to give to them? Why is it that they would want to come on my podcast? And reminding them, telling them what's the value of that. Also, in terms of the growth of your podcast, thinking about it like, how can I make this podcast so good that it can't not grow, right? How can I provide so much value and over deliver so much on this podcast that growth is just the effect of that, right? The reason that I say that is because whether it comes to money or business growth, I think a lot of us unintentionally sometimes get into the habit of what can I get? How can I get it? How can I grow it? How can I get more subscribers? How can me? That's not the way things grow, though. It's the you that the growth comes, right? It's the law of giving and receiving, right? So if you give, you shall receive. So I would focus on the giving. How can I over deliver? How can I make this so good? How can I help these, like, right? If you're doing a podcast that's helping people, or how do I make this very entertaining, or how do I just make it so good that it magnetizes people to me, and it also magnetizes, the collaborations that I want. So I would absolutely shift your energy from getting and growing into giving, and that will make all the difference. It'll also be way more fun. Like, make the goal, how much can I give, not how much growth can I have, and see what happens. And that's not just with the podcast, y'all. That is with any business, right? That's with any of the businesses that you guys have, or anything that you're trying to grow. Think, how can I give more of me to this? How can I put more? How can I make it inevitable? How can I make it the best ever? How can I make me the best ever as a vessel to put this out into the world? And then growth is just the natural effect. Abundance is the natural effect, as long as you're open up to receiving it and you're not blocking the abundance, right? Love it. Talia says, misbelief that I am not capable of creating money and it's hard to make and only for others. Do you have tips? Absolutely, Talia. So I think the first part is just recognizing, like, awesome that you're noticing that that is a misbelief, right? The fact that you're calling it out as a misbelief means that not 100% of you is believing it, right? Because you know that it is a misbelief. It's not true. And so what I would do is I would do what I shared at the beginning of the call, a compassionate self-forgiveness piece. I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that I'm not capable of creating money. I forgive myself for buying into the misbelief that it's harder for me than others, right? And I'm willing to let that go. And after doing that compassionate self-forgiveness, you can then tap into, here's what I'm leaning into believing. Here's what I'm carving out as the truth for myself, is that I can create money. The truth is, what if I can create money? What if it just looked different than I thought? What if it's easier than I thought, right? So I would just start leaning into curiosity of what you want to believe, and start playing with that and start leaning into that and exploring that, right? But I think that compassionate self-forgiveness piece is huge. And just acknowledge yourself that you notice that these are limiting beliefs, that they're misbeliefs, that they're not true. They're just pattern thoughts that have come on that your brain is believing temporarily. Really good. Okay, next question is, I just quit my job. How do I tap into the belief I can make money with my gifts of podcasting and creating intimacy with others? Okay, great question. How do you tap into a belief? Well, here's the thing that, for me, and what I've found with, working with hundreds, if not thousands of clients at this time, at this point, is where we struggle to cultivate belief is when we try to go too far too soon, right? It's great to be delusional. It is so fantastic to dream big. I'm all about it. And I think that's a beautiful way to, like, set an intention for where you want to go ultimately, is to decide, this is who I want to be. This is where I want to be. I want to believe that I can make multi-millions or whatever it is, right? But if that's too far from your current reality and your current belief system, it's going to be too much of a stretch for your brain to get on board with it. So that's why I like to inch my way there. And I find that whenever I allow myself to inch my way there, I get on board with the belief faster than if I try to shove a mantra down my brain, right? So I don't know where you are. I don't know if your current belief is, I have no idea how to make money as a creative, or I have no idea how I could possibly make money as a podcaster. Or if you're in a place where you're like, I'm already podcasting and I've got the foundation and I'm excited to create more money doing it. I'm not sure where you're at, but my recommendation in terms of building belief is let yourself do it incrementally, right? And if you're in a place where you're at like zero, meaning you totally don't believe that you can make money as a podcaster, or only a tiny part of you does, that's where I would give yourself time to build up that belief, right? Like, don't try to do this overnight. Let yourself have the space to create the foundation of a podcast. Let yourself build up the skill and get good at it. Let it be playful, right? If you're just starting it, let yourself fail, let yourself flop, like give yourself that space. Because I think when we put pressure on ourselves to go from 0 to 1,000,000, it's like, then we just feel like we're constantly failing, right? Like, for example, my husband plays piano and he's like, I didn't go from just like not playing piano at all to saying I want to play Carnegie Hall tomorrow, right? It's like, no, I had to like learn how to play my scales first. I had to learn some little like songs, right? He had to learn how to play like for years. He had to build that skill. At this point, he could totally play Carnegie Hall, but it wasn't like he was saying, I'm going to play Carnegie Hall, right? It's like, that's what could be the long-term vision. That could be the vision of where you want to go. But I think, when you say building belief, also give yourself the space and the time to build skills, to build up that belief, because it's not just about belief. It's also about the foundation, right? So I would say build up the belief, build up the foundation, build up the skill, give yourself the space to be creative and playful with it. And if that means that quitting your job is too soon, maybe find another way for abundance to flow so that you can allow the space for that all to be built up, knowing that absolutely you're going to be one of the top podcasters, right? Just like my husband, whenever he like started, he totally could play Carnegie Hall, but he had to like build up that, the skills and the belief along the way. So I think all of it really matters. So yeah, that's my recommendation. Because I hate to see people say, oh, I believe in manifestation and I want to become a billionaire. Right now I'm in so much debt. And they're like, I didn't become a billionaire within the first year. And it's like, well, you have to build the foundation first, right? Work your way towards it. Like, what's the first step? You could become a billionaire if that's what you really feel called to do. But like, don't put that time pressure on yourself, because I think that's where we get in trouble with belief. Okay, perfect. Okay. Anonymous says, any strategies to set energetic boundaries and not overextend oneself? I sometimes struggle with not picking up things that are not mine. Example, feel responsible and sad to see homelessness, emergencies on the news, tough things in movies, trying to relate when it's not for me. I am open to external dynamics, curious how to manage that. Anonymous, I so hear you because I am very similar. I am someone who feels very, very hard. And I also have to manage that. I am someone who like, if I see a little birdie on, the street or something, or like the other day I saw a hummingbird that had like, a wing that wasn't working. And I literally just like, I'm like, what do I do? Oh my gosh, I can't, it's like, it affects me. I'm like, do I call someone? And like, unfortunately, I was like, I have to release this. There's nothing I can do. I'm not a hummingbird vet. There's no one to call to come out here. I'm releasing this. And I just sent blessings. And that's what I did was I left the situation and I was sending it blessings. I'm like, whatever is for the highest good. That's that hummingbird's curriculum. I just send blessings. I send love, whatever is for the highest good of that hummingbird. Like, may it be. I just had to bless it and release it. Right. So that's one of my favorite strategies is just bless and release. Blessings are huge. You sending blessings make a difference. And there are studies that show the power of prayer and the power of blessing something. So that can be really helpful is if you are feeling that, pause for a second and send love, send light, ask for a blessing for that person and know that we don't understand it all. Like that's the other thing is like, I don't understand why that person's in that situation, but I know that they're there for a reason, right? Their soul came here to have a certain experience. We all come in with different situations, circumstances, with different lessons in this lifetime. That's what I believe at least. And I'm like, may they experience blessings in this moment. Also, I don't know what their experience is. Sometimes I project and I think, oh my God, they must be having the worst time ever, or this must be the hardest thing. I'm like, yeah, from my consciousness, I would be having the worst time ever, but I don't know, maybe that person is experiencing a blessing, or maybe what they're going through is different for them than it would be for me. but I bless them, right? So I try not to project out my thoughts about what it would be like onto them. And I just let them have their own experience, right? So blessing and release is huge. And then also just manage what you're watching. So for me, I can't watch the news. It doesn't help, right? It doesn't do anything for me. It's not like I'm taking in information that's helpful. So anything that puts me in that state, I don't watch. I also am very specific about what I watch on TV. Like I really like lighthearted stuff. And my husband always makes fun of me. He's like, Jamie, this is really good. The acting's amazing. I'm like, yeah, I don't like how it makes me feel. I just want to watch lighthearted stuff. Like, give me some Love on the Spectrum. Give me some Emily in Paris. Like, I love that light stuff that just feels good, right? So I think it's about setting boundaries with yourself and like being honest with yourself. What doesn't put you in that state? What might be captivating to a part of your brain, but it doesn't put you in a good energy? Put boundaries around it and bless and release. Okay. Julia said, I hope this wasn't already asked, but I'm having a hard time balancing all the things in my life while also growing my coaching business. I work 20 to 24 hours a week, have 5 kids at home, and am very involved in my community, but I still feel this huge desire to grow my business and hopefully replace the income of my other job. How do I best use my time and stay in alignment as I try to juggle everything while I grow my business? Okay, Julia, great question. So here is the thing. Time expands or contracts based upon how you think about it. Your life also feels how you think about it. So if you think I'm so busy, I have such little time, I have all of these things on my plate, you're going to feel overwhelmed and you're not going to want to put time into something else. So you have to find a way of thinking about your life and thinking about time that allows openness and allows space, because time will reflect what you are thinking. If we think I don't have any time, that is what we will see evidence of. If you think I have space to do, you will find evidence of that. So that's huge. And believe me, I use this big time in my life. I'm using it big time in my life right now. I have so much going on. I've got the business. I'm selling 2 homes, one of which I've lived in for 9 years. So I'm like decluttering the whole thing. Moving across the ocean this summer to Maui. My brother's getting married this weekend. My grandpa just passed away. So we're planning a funeral. So like, I've got a lot on my plate, right? And I could easily say I have no time for my business. But what I've decided is my business is a priority. And here is how I personally think about my business that might serve you. I think this is what lights me up. Like when I'm busy, when things are hard, when X, Y, or Z, like my business is the thing that grounds me. It keeps me stable. I'm so grateful for my clients. Like whenever I have a client call, whenever I have something like this, it fuels me. It gives me energy. Now, I didn't used to think that. I used to think it was depleting. I used to have a lot of one-on-ones, right? I used to think I'm so depleted. I have so many one-on-ones. It's taking my energy. And I remember getting coached on this. And my coach was like, wait a minute. She's like, I would never think that thought. Oh, I didn't realize that was a thought. I thought it was just like true. I thought that's just what it was. She's like, no, that's a thought, Jamie. You're thinking that's depleting you. And of course it is. If you're thinking it's depleting you, of course it's depleting you. She goes, my clients fuel me. And I thought, oh my God, that's actually more true. Because whenever I get off of a session, I feel really good. Like I get out of my brain and out of my life and I get to like serve and be in theirs. So anytime I'm working on my coaching business, even if my life is beyond full, like I said, I'm hopping on a flight right after this, but I'm like, I want to answer the rest of your questions because this is going to fuel me for the rest of my day, right? So you have to start thinking of, not you have to, but my encouragement, if you want it to work, is to start thinking of your business as something that fuels you. So like in all the fullness and all the busyness, what if your business is something that grounds you? How much time would you spend on it if it was something that fuels your energy and grounds you, not something that depletes you? So really helpful to start thinking of it in that way, because you will start finding evidence of it and you will create that reality for yourself. I mean, I literally could coach all day and not be depleted. I might be tired, like sleepy, but I will have more energy because I think it gives me energy. So huge for any of you who are trying to build your business amongst doing many other things, maybe working, having kids, all the things. Like, the way for it to work is to start thinking about how it fuels you and to start finding evidence of that and getting excited about doing it versus thinking it's another heavy burden task, because you're never going to do it that way. I hope that's helpful, Julia. Okay. Anonymous, how do you maintain good habits even when you are facing challenges, overwhelm, exhaustion, disrupting your routines? Yeah, Anonymous. So here's the thing. I just don't make it a problem. Honestly, I don't add on drama to it, right? I'm like, okay, this is a season. Okay, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not getting long walks. I'm not getting workout. Like, I haven't done my strength training in 2 weeks. Just personally, I told you how much I've got on my plate right now. And so there is some things that are falling behind, some good habits that have been falling behind, but I'm doing my best. And that's what I remind myself is I'm doing my best. This season will end and I'm going to get back to it. So I think it's just forgiving myself and being like, of course, I'm not getting to that right now. And I also think, okay, how can I make it a little bit more of a priority? Because it does feel good to do it, right? How can I, like, in the next couple days, how can I make reset? How can I balance it out? How can I make it a priority? But when we're shaming ourselves and saying, oh my God, I've gotten into these bad habits and I'm doing so terrible, we're not going to have the clarity or the ability to even say, oh, tomorrow I'll just get up and do it. It's fine. Don't add drama to it. It's so what? Okay, you've gotten out some bad habits. All right, so what? Right? That's kind of how I do it. And I just don't put a lot of pressure on myself and a lot of expectation. I do those things more because I like them and they fuel me. I don't have to. It's fine. And I want to get back to it soon because it fuels me. And if it's not in the next week or two when I'm traveling, that's okay too. So that's it. Don't add drama. Okay. I'm trying to create money through creative means. And I know that I have a money block, that money comes from working hard at a real job. I love that you have that in quotes, a real job, because my parents told me that. It makes me nervous to think about making money through art. How do I let go of the belief and conditioning that came from my parents? Yeah. Okay. Here's my thing is, no matter what you do, whether you are working for someone else or you're working for yourself, you're making money through art. That's what I have to say. It's just, are you working on your art or are you working on someone else's, right? Because every business idea is creative. Everything, it's artistic, right? It's an idea. So no matter what business you are working on, it was a manifestation of someone else's belief, of their artistic creation, whether you call it artistic or not, right? It is someone else's masterpiece. And so if you're working a job where you're working for someone else, you're just in the momentum of their masterpiece, of their creative vision. And you're like on board with that and you're aligning with their vision. But if you're working in your own business, you also have a job. It's just that the job is that it's your creative vision. It's really no different. So I say this because even in my business, I don't hold it energetically differently than I do when I'm working for someone else. So I've had like probably 15 jobs in my life because I started working at 11 and most of my life had like 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs at a time. I'd be working at this retailer and then go work at this coffee shop and then work at this hair salon on the weekends. Like I've always had lots of jobs up until I started my business. And I was always a really, really hard worker. And I remember thinking, if I work this hard for someone else, like, what if I put that energy into my own creative vision? What if I put the energy that I put working for someone else into my own business? And I, of course, had the idea for it and wanted to go for it. I thought, I think it's going to be successful. But here's what I didn't do. I didn't start thinking of it differently. I still think of this business as my job. I show up to it as if I'm employed. It's just that it's my own creative vision. And because of that, that is why I'm successful, right? It's like, I don't make busy seasons mean I just stop working this job. No, like this is a priority in my life. This is my job. So there's, of course, if something happens, like there's a funeral or something, just like in a job, you would have to take off. But other than that, I show up as if it is my job. It's just the difference is that it's my creative vision. I'm not like working for someone else's creative vision. So no matter what, just to break up that belief, you are making money by working on a creative vision, right? Working towards someone else's goal, someone else's vision, or your own. So you just have to decide, do you want to get on board with someone else's and work for someone else and their creative vision, or do you prefer doing your own? But if you do your own, just bring the energy of working into it, like as if it is your job. If you energetically hold it that way, you will be so much more successful. I hold this as a job. I have working hours that I always show up. You guys see me. I'm dressed the way that I'm dressed as if it were a job that I were showing up to, right? I just don't half-ass my own business. So if you don't do that, you'll be successful. So that's how you can break up the belief is no matter what, I'm making money through a creative vision. It's just, is it my own or someone else's? Get to make that decision. Okay. So I love y'all. And I hope you have a beautiful day. This was so fun. I'm so excited to start seeing y'all monthly. And this recording will go out today. So you can watch the replay if you want to rewatch it. And thank you for being with me. I'm sending you all so much love, and I will see you soon. Bye, everyone.